What if the drummer of Led Zeppelin drove you to gigs and sat in with your band? What if ZZ Top spent time watching your guitarist from the side of the stage? Trapeze had all of it. Critical praise, loyal fans, a major deal. Then one phone call changed everything, and the moment they should have broken through slipped away. This is the story of one of rock's greatest bands that never fully got the chance to rule the world. The story of Trapeze did not begin in a glamorous rehearsal studio or on a sun-drenched California stage. It began in Cannock, Staffordshire, a grey, post-industrial town in the West Midlands of England, where coal mines and steelworks had shaped generations of working-class families who understood labor, sacrifice, and survival. It was precisely the kind of place that rock and roll was made to escape from, and for three young musicians, that escape became an obsession. Trapeze was born in March 1969 from the convergence of two distinct local bands. The original five-piece lineup leaned toward melodic pop psych, built on lush vocal harmonies, keyboards, and brass. Their self-titled debut album, produced by John Lodge of the Moody Blues, showed genuine promise and even attracted attention within the broader record industry. For a group of young musicians from a forgotten industrial town, that kind of recognition felt like a sign from the universe that they were on the right path. Before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. But the five-piece format carried internal tensions that no amount of early promise could resolve. The band members were pulling in different directions, and the pop-psych formula that suited some of them suffocated others. The split was, as guitarist Mel Galley later reflected with a heavy West Midlands accent, entirely bound to happen. What emerged from the wreckage was something far more powerful and far more dangerous. A trio, Glenn Hughes on bass and vocals, Mel Galley on guitar, Dave Holland behind the drums. Three musicians from the same gray working-class landscape, now stripped of everything unnecessary, pointing themselves at a sound that had never quite existed before. Glenn Hughes was barely 17 when he first picked up a bass guitar. He had grown up worshiping Eric Clapton and George Harrison, and the switch to bass happened almost by accident when the bass player for his previous band suddenly quit. Given just 24 hours to learn the instrument before an upcoming gig, Hughes developed a pick-style technique that gave his playing an aggressive, highly syncopated quality unlike anything else in the British rock underground. He later reflected, "When we formed Trapeze, that's when bass started to get funky for me. I've heard some Trapeze bonus tracks that I hadn't heard before, and the bass was really something, and I was only 17 or 18. That bass was about to help define an era." The power trio format forced a radical creative honesty. There was nowhere to hide, no keyboard wash to fill the gaps, no extra guitarist to cover weak passages. Every note had to matter, and every player had to perform at the absolute limit of their ability. For Trapeze, that pressure did not break them. It forged them into something that set them apart from most of their British contemporaries. Mel Galley brought a raw, saturated guitar tone rooted in the West Midlands blues tradition, a sound that drew from the same regional well as Black Sabbath, but filtered through a groove-obsessed sensibility that had more in common with American soul than British metal. Dave Holland was a relentless, mechanical force behind the kit. A drummer whose pocket was so deep and so reliable that the bass and guitar could venture into wild, improvised territory without ever losing the thread. And Hughes himself was something the British rock world had simply not seen before. A bass player who sang with the range and emotional power of a gospel-trained vocalist, capable of moving from a whispered intimacy to a full-throated wail within a single phrase. The sound they were building had no name yet. It was heavy rock fused with deep, syncopated American funk. It was blues translated into something harder and more urgent. And it was years ahead of its time. While their British contemporaries refined the blues rock formula or chased the growing progressive rock market, Trapeze was quietly inventing a hybrid sound that would only become widely commercial years later, when funk and hard rock fully converged. They were playing the future in 1970, in small clubs across the English Midlands, to audiences who could feel the electricity but had no framework to explain what they were hearing. The buzz began to build. Word spread through the British rock underground that something extraordinary was happening in the West Midlands. And the people paying the closest attention were some of the most important names in the entire industry. In November 1970, Trapeze released their second album, Medusa, and it announced to anyone paying attention that the trio from Cannock had arrived. Produced by John Lodge, the record was a thunderous, funk-infused statement that combined riff-driven blues rock with the kind of deep, rhythmic soul grooves that American audiences had been hungry for since the late 1960s. And it found its most passionate audience not in England, but in the wide-open music culture of the United States. The American chapter began with a touring opportunity that would have tested lesser bands. Before Medusa had even reached record store shelves, the band was invited to support the Moody Blues on an American arena tour. 17 shows in 20 days, playing to crowds numbering 15 to 20,000 people every night. Audiences that had never heard of them, who had come to see someone else entirely. Glenn Hughes later recalled what happened when they reached the South. Even before Medusa had come out, the Moody Blues took us out on tour with them in America. We did 17 shows in 20 days, playing to 15 to 20,000 people a night. By the time we got to Texas in December 1970, they took to us like we were Texans. That's when the rocket ship lifted off. Texas became their adopted home. In San Antonio, a legendary disc jockey named Joe Anthony operated a freeform radio program that completely ignored corporate playlists and industry mandates. Known as the Godfather to generations of South Texas rock fans, Anthony discovered Medusa and played it in its entirety, night after night, introducing a heavy, soulful groove to passionate and knowledgeable listeners who had been waiting for exactly this kind of music without knowing it. The live reputation Trapeze built in those early touring years attracted admirers from the highest levels of the rock world. John Bonham, the legendary drummer of Led Zeppelin and already one of the most famous musicians alive, was a constant presence at their English Midlands shows. He drove Hughes to local club gigs in his personal car, stood at the side of the stage watching every set with intense admiration, and jumped behind the drum kit during encores just to play with them. When the drummer of Led Zeppelin sought you out to sit in with your band, the rest of the industry paid attention. By late 1972, Trapeze reached the absolute zenith of their creative power. Their third album, You Are the Music, We're Just the Band, was a record of breathtaking sophistication and ambition. Blending heavy rock riffs with elements of country soul, jazz fusion, and deep, Stevie Wonder-inspired funk that had no business existing inside a British hard rock record, but somehow felt completely inevitable when Hughes sang it. Hughes himself was unequivocal about its meaning. I cannot emphasize strongly enough how much this album means to me. The industry environment surrounding the release could not have been more favorable. Hard rock was in the middle of its most commercially explosive period. Arena rock was selling out stadiums from coast to coast. Bands with a fraction of Trapeze's musical gifts were signing major deals and moving hundreds of thousands of records on the strength of a single strong single. Their contemporaries were finding massive audiences. A new major deal had been secured, giving the band the resources and the platform to launch a genuine international campaign. Joe Anthony was still spinning their records in Texas. The cult following in the American South was growing with every passing month. ZZ Top had toured with Trapeze in the American South, and the members of that band had spent time watching Mel Galley work from the side of the stage. The shared billings and those long nights on the road helped Trapeze leave an imprint on the wider Southern rock conversation. Even if the credit was never formally acknowledged, even the bands around them were taking notice. Everything pointed toward the breakthrough. Every indicator suggested that Trapeze was standing at the threshold of something enormous. The songs were there, the live reputation was there, the audience was there, passionate and loyal and growing. All the pieces were in place. Then, a phone call arrived and changed everything. In mid-1973, one of the biggest, most successful touring machines on the entire planet had lost its singer and bassist simultaneously. The search for replacements was underway, and the band doing the searching had set their sights on Glenn Hughes. Hughes had become aware that something was happening. The band's members had been appearing in the front rows of Trapeze's American club shows, watching with an attention that went beyond casual appreciation. Hughes later recalled noticing their presence without understanding its true significance, completely unaware that he was being quietly scouted at the exact moment his own band stood on the verge of a breakthrough. The offer, when it arrived, was extraordinary in its scale, but Hughes was not immediately convinced. His entire musical identity had been built around soulful, funky, groove-driven music. The heavier, more classically structured sound that the recruiting band was famous for did not, on its surface, align with where his heart lived. He later recalled his honest reservation. "To be honest with you, if it wasn't soulful and funky, it didn't interest me. My experience of funk was Sly and the Family Stone, so when I heard their music, I thought it was okay, but it didn't really do it for me." What ultimately persuaded him was the possibility of a dual vocalist concept alongside a musician he deeply admired. Paul Rodgers of Free had apparently been invited to join as co-vocalist. The idea of sharing the stage with Rodgers was something that captured Hughes's imagination in a way the straightforward offer had not. Rodgers ultimately turned down the invitation, but the concept remained, and a young singer named David Coverdale was recruited alongside Hughes to share the vocal duties. Hughes accepted, and Trapeze, at the precise moment they should have broken through to an international audience, lost the one thing they could not afford to lose. Gone was the primary voice, the chief songwriter, and the most charismatic commercial personality the band possessed. In a single decision, the band that had been building toward a breakthrough for 4 years was instantly returned to ground zero. Hughes himself, decades later and having survived a harrowing descent into addiction on the arena rock circuit, expressed a pain that time had not fully healed. "I really should never have left Trapeze. I should have stayed on that boat. That's the way I feel these days. Truly, leaving Trapeze has been the torment of my life, but I had to let it go." Mel Galley and Dave Holland were left to rebuild. The major deal was still on the table, which meant the pressure to deliver was immediate and enormous. They moved quickly, recruiting bassist Pete Wright, whose audition was almost accidental. Wright had run into the band while picking up a local sound engineer, and when Galley casually asked if he was still playing, one impromptu session followed. The band met with their manager, Tony Perry, then emerged with a simple verdict: pack your bags, you're in. A second guitarist, Rob Kendrick, was also brought in to fill out the sound. The new lineup recorded Hotwire, released in late 1974, and it was a creditable effort from musicians working under crushing circumstances. But the specific alchemy of Hughes, Galley, and Holland, locked into a collective groove, was simply not replicable. The new material was sometimes excellent, but it did not have the same electricity that had once made John Bonham want to jump behind the drum kit. The strategic identity crisis that followed was perhaps the most damaging consequence of the lineup collapse. Every industry meeting raised the same unanswerable question: what kind of band were Trapeze now? Were they a hard rock band, a funk act, a blues outfit? Different combinations were tried, different sounds, different approaches, different vocalists. A brief reunion of the original trio in 1976 raised hopes before fading without resolution. A later addition, vocalist Pete Golby, who would eventually front Uriah Heep, brought genuine energy and professional craft. Golby recalled the challenge with an honest mixture of excitement and humility. "Trapeze was my first really big challenge. I replaced Glenn Hughes. He left to join Deep Purple. Wow, big shoes to fill." The shoes were indeed impossible to fill, as the mid to late 1970s brought an increasingly crowded rock landscape, with harder and flashier acts competing for every available radio slot and arena date. The organic, funk-infused identity that had made Trapeze unique became harder and harder to position. New wave arrived, and the major labels demanded their artists adapt or be left behind. By 1982, Trapeze had dissolved. The members scattered into new chapters that were in some cases triumphant, in others heartbreaking beyond measure. Dave Holland landed the drum chair in Judas Priest, powering the band through their most commercially successful period and playing on albums that filled arenas on multiple continents. The technical precision and powerful pocket that had made the trapeze rhythm section so formidable proved perfectly suited to the hard-edged metal that Judas Priest delivered in the early 1980s. It was a remarkable second act for a drummer who had never received the credit his playing deserved. Mel Galley found his way into Whitesnake, where he co-wrote some of the band's most enduring material, including the track Love Ain't No Stranger on a classic 1984 album. He was at a creative and professional peak. Then came one of the darkest footnotes in rock history. During a tour stop in Germany, a freak accident in a parking lot resulted in Galley's hand being severely crushed. The nerve damage was permanent. His career as a performing guitarist was effectively ended by a single careless moment. The resilience he showed in response, eventually teaching himself to play again using a mechanical brace, reflected the same spirit that had driven him in those early Canuck clubs. But the career that might have been was gone forever. Glenn Hughes carried the heaviest burden of all. The arena rock world he had entered in search of greater opportunity introduced him to an environment of excess that nearly destroyed him. A cocaine addiction deepened into a crisis that consumed years of his life and brought him to the absolute edge of oblivion. The recovery was long, brutal, and ultimately complete. Hughes later pinpointed the exact moment the long path back began. "I'm most proud of getting clean and sober. I'm 23 years sober now. If I hadn't done that on November 23rd, 1997, I'd be dead." That's when the light went on. The passage of time did something unexpected to the story of Trapeze. It transformed them. In the years and decades following their dissolution, a quiet but persistent rediscovery began. Younger musicians and devoted rock purists started finding the band's most celebrated recordings, especially Medusa and You Are the Music, We're Just the Band. What they found there stopped them cold. The heavy funk rock fusion that Trapeze had pioneered in 1970 sounded not like a historical curiosity, but like a blueprint. Glenn Hughes, reflecting on the bandmate who had been his musical hero since childhood, captured the human dimension of the legacy most powerfully. After Mel Galley's passing in 2008, Hughes remembered him not as a guitarist he had worked alongside, but as a formative presence that never left him. Mel was my hero growing up as a kid in Canuck. He was 4 years older than me, and along with Jimi Hendrix and Eric Clapton, was one of my guitar gods. In those words lived the whole arc of the story: the working-class town, the teenage admiration, the extraordinary music they made together, and the friendship that outlasted everything the industry had thrown at them. In the decades since their dissolution, Trapeze came to be celebrated as a hidden gem and a collector's treasure, a musician's band in the truest sense of the phrase. The vinyl pressings of Medusa and You Are the Music passed between rock purists who understood exactly what they held. They were not famous in the way their peers were famous, but they were real in a way that most famous bands never quite managed to be. Trapeze did not fail because they lacked the talent, the songs, or the drive. They reached the moment where the world should have discovered them and lost the one piece they could not afford to lose. But the music they recorded in those few extraordinary years refuses to fade. It keeps finding new listeners who hear something in it that feels like truth. What's your memory of Trapeze? Drop it in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more untold stories from rock's greatest era.